go in, meet with them. Your job is leaving you. Here's a package, et cetera, et cetera. So I was part of the organization that would go in and meet with those folks who are probably having a pretty terrible day. Honestly, like you're just being told that you've lost your job, usually not through any fault of your own, but it's a pretty terrible day. And in that industry, which is it's a fairly large industry, it's usually smaller organizations doing it, but outplacement itself is sort of a pretty big niche industry. Part of the accepted script is to sit down. Amy, I know you just lost your job, you have a family, but you have to think about the company. The company isn't going to survive if they keep paying you and the 100 people that you work with. It's for the good of the company. Now, personally speaking, I could never say those words because I can't look at another person and say, think of this giant company. I'm not going to name any, but think of this organization, because that's just ridiculous, at least in my opinion. But the fact that kind of across the board, that was something that was considered acceptable to go in to say, it's how pervasive that mindset is, not just with the government, not just with politicians, but that you can tell workers when they're losing their job, think about the company more so than yourself and your family and your own needs. So I think very much to Vince's point, this started a long time ago, and we probably don't realize how deeply ingrained it is in our culture, and just how big of an effort it could be to change. So I just wanted to mention that. I hope I didn't take us too far off topic.
There's a real good movie on that, Up in the Air, George Clooney, maybe.
It gives me flashbacks. I had to watch through my fingers, honestly, because it was really close to home. Yeah.
My research has shown me that industrial parks sometimes sees governments that will finance facilities that's not used for the public. Okay, their buildings, structures, they're not a part of that community's infrastructure, and usually, traditionally, they would not be financed by government. But we're to the point now where it seems the government just does whatever they want to do. And who's left to pick up the pieces, or who's left to, I should say, dig deeper? Yeah, it's us.
Yes, it is an American taxpayer. When I was doing my research, I forgot about when the car companies went to the government for subsidy. And same thing to me. They needed help. Chrysler, Ford, major car corporations needed help, needed bailout money. The government gave them bailout money. And what happened was the government found out that they weren't using the funds properly, which is what a lot of corporations did, because how do you not have some sort of guidance as to how the money is going to be distributed? And you've been told over and over again that during the pandemic, small businesses were being left out. Major corporations were being left out. And one of the things that the funds were for was to not decrease staff. And a lot of companies did RIF people, did let people go, forced people into early retirement, and still kept the money. And who's checking that? Who's holding them accountable for that? If you didn't reduce your staff, you don't have to repay the loan, is what I read. I don't know how accurate that is, but I thought that was like, say what? So is there a time period on repayment of the loan, or what's the guidance? How do you let the mom and pop shop that's been there for 40, 50 years go under, but yet major corporation where they're still handing out big bonuses on the sly? How do you do that to Americans? How do you do that? We've been doing it for years, as I think Dan said, the lobbyists. They've been lobbying very hard and on purpose to get their points across financially so that they don't suffer, but everybody else suffers. And we, the taxpayers, make up the difference.
Mhm.
Thank you.
There was something else that I found in my research was the talk about, I think Walmart was one of the big corporations. I don't mean to name, but where employees have to be subsidized with additional aid because they're not making a living wage. Yet Walmart will also receive subsidies. Like, you can't pay somebody working full time a living wage, and so the taxpayer. I don't mind there being a safety net at all. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that why are we shoring up people who are trying to earn a living wage by working full time, but the corporation isn't giving it to them?
To that point, Amy, I found that there's at least 34, maybe 37 states that make outright contributions of money, grants, to some companies that locate or expand within their borders, right? And this most common type of grant reimburses the companies for expenses that's incurred in training their employees. For training their employees. Now, they have some kind of formula, which I didn't quite understand, but it compensates these companies when they meet employment related criteria, such as when they hire a minimum amount of people or when they pay a certain wage. So what I'm thinking is, if they paid over that rate, that wage bracket, which would help the employees, it may somehow affect or cut down the amount of the grant money that they get.
Wow.
So they don't have any incentive to pay $15, $20, $17. If they can pay the $15 and fall into the guidelines of that grant money, they've done what they need to do.
Wow.
In all earnestness, Calvin, if you could buy a nice hat for $35 less, would you not buy that hat for $35 less?
Of course I would.
So, I mean, I think the problem in its essence is systemic. It's all systemic. And what I mean by that is that when you look at corporations, when you look at human drive, right? And get what capitalism is, what we exported to the world. We exported capitalism to the world. So what we exported to the world, in itself, it eats itself. It's built off production and consumerism, and it's not built off the people who have to live in a society built off production and consumerism. Especially in a nation where the things that are prized as a society are individualism, self-determination, what you build and what you've accumulated yourself, independence. We're not like Japan, where it's about community, where it's about, I mean, they have their flaws. I'm not going to glorify Japan. But what I'm saying is that our values as a nation makes it systemic for this to be able to happen, because we hold corporations on a pedestal, the same kind of pedestal we hold our celebrities on, like their royalty. Everybody, every politician looks at corporations and corporate cooperation as if it's a save-all for jobs, no matter the quality of the jobs and no matter the pay. Everybody, including the populace as well as our politicians, who, don't forget, populists, look at corporations because they have what? Because they're organized and because they're financed. And
Vincent, you're breaking up a little bit there, so I'm going to jump in for a second. You're kind of breaking up, but I hear what you're saying about the government. But let's talk about the people that actually dispenses the money out. Let's talk about the governors of these states, okay? They talk all the time. We hear the word transparency, but obviously there's no transparency going on. It's a non-transparent process for them to give out money, usually an undefined or undetermined amount. I would love to be able to get into some of those books and see what's actually going on. But a lot of times, this is just done, it's glossed over, and we have no idea what the hell is going on. We meaning the insignificant people, the smaller people, the non-corporations. We don't know what the hell is going on, except our taxes are going up. Okay, our property taxes are going up. It's costing more to get a loaf of bread. But you know, the Walmart where I go to get the bread from, they're cleaning up. Dan.
So I think what's inherently, what bothers people here is somebody's put the thumb on the scale. So we've tilted this, I'm all for competition and I, somebody builds something from nothing and makes a company and takes care of their workers. And, to Amy's point, if you can't pay a living wage, you shouldn't be in business. So that's a totally separate discussion. But here we have the thumb on the scale. And I think part of it developed from actually trying to help something work. But we have a very flawed system. And like you said, it doesn't see the light of day. There's no sunshine on it. So you could look at a classic example here in Illinois, Sears. We've had 3 bailouts of Sears. One of those bailouts was allowing them, we gave them money to move out of the Sears Tower, build a campus in Hoffman Estates, in the northwest suburbs, and we subsidized all that. And we gave them such a property tax rate over the objections of Hoffman Estates, by the way, because there was a great influx of kids into their school system with no money to come with it. So the other consequence of it is the Sears Tower is right near central public transportation. What you essentially did is if they essentially got rid of all their South Side employees who could no longer make it out to Hoffman Estates. So now you've changed the total dynamics of that company. Now we paid for all this. Now the original intention was to save jobs. But corporations have learned to blackmail us and say, we're leaving town if you don't pay us. We saw it when Amazon was doing their second, headquarters. So we have these subsidies, and what happens is they go to the ones who are connected. We say they're supposed to build up blighted neighborhoods, but how do we define a blighted neighborhood? There's a development that's being paid for by TIF money in Leakin Park, right on the river. That's not a blighted area. It's one of the most expensive areas in Chicago. But it gets TIF money because they're connected to the mayor. So I think what happens is we start off with these original grand plans and say we want to save things, we want to help blighted areas and stuff, but we don't watch the watchers. We just make the announcements up front, and then it moves on from there. And we're not seeing, that part doesn't see the light of day. And there's some very rich people getting even richer off it.
That's right. And with the TIF money that you just mentioned, the tax revenue that's generated when it's over the amount that is owed to the city, then guess where that money goes? That overage. It goes into corporate welfare. Yeah. I'm throwing my hands up in the air here. I don't know what
to me, it's kind of like a poker game. So a normal poker game, let's say the 6 of us are playing, and Mr. or Madam Corporation, if you will. So we each give an equal number of cards, and then we try to outsmart each other, in the hand. Well, the way the corporation plays is this: each of us gets 2 cards. They get 40.
Yeah.
So you might get a pair out of it, a couple of 2s, whatever, but they also have 4 aces, 3 or 4 kings, few straights, so forth, so it doesn't really matter unless we gang up together and maybe get a better hand out of it or something.
See, and
I think that's the way. I think they've set that up that way purposely to do it that way. And
that may be a solution to some of this. People need to get together and really start examining and putting some pressure on those that that's in charge. And I know Vincent got something to say about this. What? Yes, Vincent.
I don't know about that. Like,